In this video, I shall discuss about and demonstrate the deep tendon reflexes of the upper limb. DTRs are also referred to as muscle stretch reflexes or MSRs. Starting head-on with the physiology, let's take the classical example of the knee reflex, which is also referred to as the patellar reflex. Now, what happens is that when we tap a muscle tendon, a small amount of muscle stretch or lengthening occurs. This activates the stretch receptors which carry the afferent impulses from the muscle to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord via the 1A afferent neurons. So these are the 1A afferent neurons, and these carry the reflexes from the joint, the patellar tendon, through these 1A afferent neurons into the dorsal root ganglion. In the dorsal horn, this impulse can take two pathways majorly. The first pathway is the one which synapses with the motor neuron of the same muscle leading to the contraction. In this case, it is the alpha motor neuron to the quadriceps femoris muscle, which is the agonist muscle of the patellar reflex. The second one, first of all, it synapses with the inhibitory interneuron, which is shown in blue in this diagram, and then it synapses with the alpha motor neuron of the antagonist muscle. This antagonist muscle in this case is the hamstring muscle. This antagonist muscle gets relaxed because of the inhibitory impulse which has been transmitted to it. So this is how the stretch reflex acts. One must as well remember that the corticospinal tract, which is an upper motor neuron, it has a dampening effect on this reflex, and therefore any lesion in the corticospinal tract or the upper motor neuron causes hyperreflexia or increased firing. So there are three types of hammers which are available to elicit these stretch reflexes depending on the shape of the head of the hammer. First is the triangular or the tomahawk shaped, which is the Taylor hammer, which we classically use. Next one is the T-shaped Tromner or Buck hammer, and the last is circular queen square or the Babinski's hammer. Now hyperreflexia can also be elicited with the clinician's finger itself or the rim of stethoscope. You must have seen many clinicians doing so. Hyperreflexia is best elicited with the help of circular ones. That is why the Taylor hammers, since they are not very effective in eliciting so, it is said that in pediatrics the Taylor's hammers are preferably discouraged and rather the circular hammers are preferred. One must also remember that to elicit a reflex, the movement of the examiner's hand should not be at the shoulder joint. It should be rather freely at the wrist joint. I'll explain further. Now see, in this video we'll see that majority of the students, they move their shoulder joint while eliciting a reflex, which is a wrong method. This is a wrong method. Rather, the movement should be freely at the wrist joint. For example, here. Let's have a closer look. Also, one must keep the eyes focused on the contraction of the muscle. So, one must be focused on seeing the contraction of the muscle rather than the movement of the limb. To achieve full relaxation of a joint, the patient may need to be distracted, and these techniques are referred to as reinforcement techniques. There are several methods to distract the patient while eliciting the reflex. You may ask the patient to clench the jaw, hook the fingers together and forcefully pull their arms apart. This is classically referred to as Jindřich's maneuver and is used for lower extremity and jaw jerk reflexes itself. And in the upper extremity, you can make the patient make a fist with one hand while the opposite extremity is being tested. Or alternatively, you yourself can converse with the patient while eliciting the response. The Jindřich's maneuver I had demonstrated in the video on superficial reflexes while eliciting the plantar reflex. You may see that. Now the biceps reflex. The root value C5, C6 muscular cutaneous nerve. To elicit it, support the forearm at a slightly flexed and relaxed elbow joint with your own arm. Then cushion the tendon of the biceps brachii muscle with your own finger or thumb and strike it with the hammer. The normal response consists of contraction of the biceps brachii and slight flexion of the forearm, as you will see further. The triceps is C7, C8 and radial. Flex the elbow and shoulder joint such that the tendon of the triceps is stretched and strike just posterior to the elbow, which is the insertion of the triceps tendon. The normal response consists of extension of the forearm. The brachioradialis C5, C6 or radial. Keep the arm in a semi-pronated position. Strike the tendon of the brachioradialis muscle at its insertion onto the styloid process of the radius bone. The normal response consists of slight flexion and supination or pronation of the forearm. Now, the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke has given a scale for grading the response. Rather, it is very subjective, but we use this scale for grading the response clinically. 0 is no reflex, 1 is less than normal, 2 is lower half of the normal range, 3 is upper half of the normal range, and 4 is hyperreflexia. It is more than normal, rather it includes clonus also sometimes if present. 5th is sustained clonus. We will see in the next video what clonus means. Plus or minus can indicate the reflex was in between the whole grades. 1/2 can alternatively indicate that reinforcement technique was used and therefore the reflex is not brisk. And grading is, as already discussed, based on the clinician's subjective evaluation of amplitude, and therefore it may vary from clinician to clinician. Absent stretch reflexes, we already know that the lesion is somewhere in the reflex arc, that is low motor neuron, for example peripheral neuropathy. And hyperactive stretch reflexes, as already discussed, the lesion is somewhere above the segment of the reflex arc or the upper motor neuron. Thank you and have a good day.